السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، مساء الخير جميعا. أهلا بكم في برنامج نيوكاسل مع وليد. معنا ضيف مميز، رئيس صحيفة الكرونيكل لريدر. طبعا من أبرز الصحفيين اللي يغطون أخبار نيوكاسل، خصوصا في فترة الصيف الساخنة. سوق الانتقالات ما زال مستمر. اليوم يبدأ الدوري الإنجليزي بمباراة ليفربول وبورموث تقريبا الآن في الشوط الأول. طبعا راح يجاوبنا إن شاء الله السيد لي على جميع الأسئلة اللي راح نسألها إياها إن شاء الله، وبرضو إذا في أسئلة خاصة ممكن تسألونا في الشات تحت، في رابط الأسئلة تحت. طيب، lads and lasses, Lee Reader in the house. We would like to welcome Mr. Lee. We're honored and privileged to have him in the show. Welcome, Mr. Lee.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having us on again.
At the beginning, we would like to thank you as well for answering all our questions, Saudi Society and WhatsApp and X platform in the Chronicle. Really appreciate that, sir.
No problem.
Mr. Lee, I know you are sick of transfer questions, but it's been a very hot summer and roller coaster in the summer for Newcastle fans. Let's break the ice with Korea and Singapore trip. How was it?
Yeah, it was really good actually. It was good to see two more countries and good to see Newcastle supporters from those countries. They were everywhere we went, outside the hotel, at the training ground, obviously at the stadium before the games in the fan parks. I think it was a really good exercise for Newcastle. They're trying to really grow the global brand, and I thought going to those two countries where they haven't been certainly for a long time was a really good move, because it gave people the chance to see the team and meet the players and the staff for the first time.
Brilliant. And you mentioned before you meet somebody from BIF in the Korea trip. Did you make a conversation and a special interview?
Yeah. I mean, I met quite a few people over there, and obviously we spoke to some of the Newcastle officials at the team hotel, and what the message we got was that there's real ambition behind this project still, and I think since we've come back, we've kind of seen that ambition realised a little bit. Obviously, Ramsdale signing when we were over there, Malik Thiaw, who's just signed in the last few days, and obviously Ramsey as well to come. So 3 signings in recent times, 4 signings in total, probably a couple more to come as well. So I think that ambition is there, and hopefully it holds Newcastle in good stead for the season ahead.
Mr. Lee, we have many questions from the fans here, and I summarize it to the most important and most repeated one. Okay, let's start with why Newcastle club and the sport manager Paul Mitchell agreed to leave, or make the Paul Mitchell leave, and in good terms, in sensitive time before the transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a strange one in some ways, because it was obviously the last time we seen him in public, he was on the pitch celebrating getting in the Champions League, and then 2 days later he'd gone, he'd walked. The reasons perhaps are because Darren Eales is also going to leave, and he was very close with Darren Eales. We know that some of the things that he said about the scouting system not being fit for purpose. I don't think there was massive tension between Eddie and Paul Mitchell, but I think that from the first few weeks we did feel that there was that sort of narrative where there was a bit of unrest maybe behind the scenes, disagreements on certain targets, disagreements on Alexander Isak's contract. I think perhaps Eddie might have wanted Isak's contract tied up, and obviously Paul Mitchell disagreed, and now we have this problem. So there's lots of different sort of reasons, but I don't think any major bust up. I just think that long term it probably wasn't going to work. But look, he can always say now that he was the sporting director who led Newcastle, helped lead Newcastle to the Champions League, and was in charge of the sporting department when they won their only trophy domestically for 70 years. So, you know, there's two ways of looking at it, as always.
Most of fans ask why the delay in CEO subject? Why they didn't sign yet CEO?
Yeah, I mean, we're still obviously waiting to see that development take place. Yeah, it's a strange one. Eddie Howe's asking exactly the same question, I guess, because obviously Newcastle have not had that leader in the CEO seat. Maybe I think they're probably waiting for exactly the right appointment. It doesn't mean that there's been no leadership at all, because as we mentioned just a few minutes ago, PIF had somebody with Newcastle on the tour. They had two officials there. You had Peter Silverstone there. You had Brad Miller, who's in charge of the ground. And all these people are board members. And I think they're all working together, perhaps as a smaller committee, to help support Eddie Howe. So, yeah, I think it is a question mark over it. And obviously, it needs to be filled sooner rather than later. But I don't think that's the reason why Newcastle haven't had the greatest of windows.
Is he on sick leave, or is he covering now, Mr. Darren Ellis?
I think that's a really sort of sensitive question, and to be totally honest, I do not know the terms of his leave arrangement with Newcastle. So yeah, I think it's a sensitive one, and I think, you know, it's better that one comes from the club.
Who lead the question? Who lead the negotiating with the players now?
I think, well, as I say, it's a small committee. I think Eddie Howe's obviously got a big say in it. Steve Nixon is around. They've got Andy Howe in there. They've got Peter Silverstone in there. I don't think he's going to have a massive say on transfers. I don't think he would interfere, but he's certainly that executive type of figure who's in the background, who can help and has got good contacts. Obviously worked close with Darren Eales and Paul Mitchell as well. So it's not like there's nobody there and it's like an empty sort of room. It's like there are people there helping push these transfers along. Obviously, they have signed 4 players now, signed a couple of younger players as well, including Park. So I think there's reasons to be more optimistic than there was just a couple of weeks ago.
All right, absolutely. This one is a bit difficult, but I'll try to translate it. Fans, as in general, asking PIF and some of them asking Amanda Stively to come back. But in the same time, nobody asked about Mr. Jimmy Rubin. He's kind of disappeared on the field, or we didn't see him. He's in England, but we wonder why. Why you think this? Why you think of that?
Well, I think Amanda Staveley potentially coming back is obviously, I've seen a lot of sort of suggestions and mentions of it on social media, but certainly from people who are in and around the club, I haven't heard that. That's a new one on me, that those two directors will come back. That's not something I've heard from within. I'm sure it would have been mentioned earlier. As for Jamie Rubin, I know he's still very much one of the sort of backers of the club. The Rubin family are still very much there. He's obviously, we do hear from him from time to time on social media, on X. So I do think he's still very much there. I do think he's pushing in the background for things to happen. But by the same token, he's not going to be the kind of front sort of director who's going to, you know, come out and talk about transfer matters. That's just not what his position is. I don't think he's done too many interviews. I think I was fortunate enough to get some quotes from him maybe a couple of years ago but it was more about investment in the city, the football club as well being a big focal point of that. And I think he's done a couple of things on Sky Sports as well. But I do not see him as one of the main spokesmen of the club. I think he's just part of the family who are very much backing Newcastle United.
Mr. Lee, did you notice that there is no message from the board, from the owners, to calm the fans? This is weird. Usually we have this kind of video release or some message from while to while, but this time is being maybe the longest time we didn't hear something official.
I think, to be totally honest, it's as far as transfers are concerned, and I know that's what people are concerned about most. As far as transfers are concerned, I think actions speak louder than words, and they've signed 4 players and they're going to sign more. Eddie Howe confirmed that today. As for official interviews, then I think maybe when the window is closed, I think we will probably hear from somebody on the record. That was the case last year with Darren Eales and Paul Mitchell. So maybe these appointments will bring more on the record quotes. But yeah, Eddie Howe has done a lot of interviews, but always speaks sense. Today, I think he took over 22 questions on Alexander Isak. I think that's to be admired. And yeah, I mean, there's no better spokesman than Eddie Howe, because everybody hangs on every word that he says. So yeah, that's for me. That would be my answer on that. If we're going to see sort of more executive interviews coming forward, that would be good to see.
All right, Isaac saga will start now after the takeover saga. We don't have any sagas now. The Isaac saga. This question طبعا هذا السؤال من عالم ليفربول من الصديق علي من حساب الFC Extensive. This question, Mr. Lee, from Liverpool supporter, Saudi Arabian Middle East. They want me to ask you this question. Mr. Lee, Reader, we have a question for you from LFC Extensive account on X. Is it true that before the end of the last season, Alexander Isak was promised that he could leave, but that before leading him to go on strike from training and miss the Asian Tour?
Well, the suggestion coming from the side of Alexander Isak and the agent is that at some stage there was talk of him getting an enhanced deal. Then Paul Mitchell come in and said that deal is fine. You continue with what you've got. And then, of course, before the Carabao Cup final, Isak done a press conference and he sat in the room and he said, that he was looking towards sitting down with Newcastle to discuss a new deal. And then obviously pre-season starts, he goes to Austria with the team. And then something on that trip in Austria must have changed something, because he's not at Celtic, he's not in Singapore, he's not in South Korea, and he hasn't played since. Now, whether he is officially on strike, only he can answer that. Eddie Howe didn't stand that up today. I didn't say that he was on strike officially. But obviously, there's been some major disagreement about whether he's ready or not. Now, look, he missed the 2 friendlies last weekend, Espanyol, Atletico Madrid, and his match fitness now must have plummeted. I mean, obviously, he's fit, he's an athlete, but his match fitness must be pretty low. And if he is to be sort of reintegrated back in the squad, and it's probably going to take quite some time for him to catch up. Whether he plays for Newcastle United again, we'll have to wait and see. Eddie Howe keeping the door open. But I think for Alexander Isak, he may still believe, with 2 weeks left of the window, that he can still achieve his move to Liverpool.
But no ways he was promised to leave, like situation with Isak.
Well, I think promises, suggestions, discussions always go on. We've seen it down the years, people getting rewarded for better performances. Now, he had a great season last season on paper, but towards the end of the season, we didn't see the best version of Alexander Isak. So maybe his head was turned earlier. I think eventually he will come out and talk. I've certainly tried to speak to him and his representatives, and we haven't really got anywhere. He doesn't want to engage in anything like that at the minute. So yeah, it's a real headache, but it's kept all the journalists busy. So we continue to ask the questions.
Brilliant, sir. This one is interesting. When Eddie Howe feels giving up, and is it true that Isaac's story was expected and promised by Amanda, which we talked about just now? The conclusion is why this make the deal better for Isaac. Why the club didn't expect it to happen and solve it immediately?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's one where again it's a sensitive one to answer. But I mean, one of the stories that I reported on before we went to South Korea and Singapore was that at one stage there was an offer of £200,000 a week, which would have made Isak the highest paid player. That wasn't taken, and he's obviously still under contract as well. Don't forget that. He's still very well paid. So he needs to he needs to decide what he wants, because if he can't get Liverpool, then he's going to have to get back to work with Newcastle United. And there is a lot of emphasis on him to A, get back to work, and B, face the public, which he hasn't done so far. But there'll be reasons for it. There always is. So I'm trying to stay as open-minded on it as possible.
Mr. Lee, your colleague, Mr. Craig Hope, you met him, of course. You were with him in Singapore and Korea. When he broke the story about Isaac, do you think the explosion happened helped Newcastle somehow in accelerating and solve the issues? There is a positive side on this breaking.
Did it help accelerate the situation? Well, I think, to be totally honest, Newcastle don't have a striker going into tomorrow. So realistically, look, it's something again that Alexander Isak has to basically face, the public on. Alexander Isak does not look like he wants to play for Newcastle United. So he obviously does want to explore what his options are going forward. So we have that side of the story. We have what Eddie Howe has said. We don't have what's been said by Isak, and you mentioned Amanda Staveley promising him a deal. We don't have that side of it either, and we may not see that side of it. So I think there's a few missing parts here before we can come to a full conclusion on it. But look, he's a player that is still valuable to Newcastle. But at the minute, if Liverpool put a bid on the table for him of 130, 140 million, then I personally think that Newcastle would accept that. But we'll have to wait and see if that bid comes in the next few days.
Why the team, of the scout team or signing team, having difficulties in signing or convince the players to join Newcastle?
Well, I think PSR is a big factor. Wages Newcastle still aren't going over £150,000 a week. So it only takes Chelsea to offer another £50,000 a week, or Manchester United to offer that little bit more. Newcastle at the minute, because they don't want to break the wage ceiling, cannot compete with some of their rivals at the minute. And it's not just rivals who are above them in the table, it's rivals like Man United who have been below them in the table. So it's a big issue, but I'm convinced that it can still be a good season. And I'm encouraged by the signings that they have made. So I'd rather look at it at the players who want to play for Newcastle United rather than those who don't. Because if it does come down to 30, 40,000 extra money, then maybe they're not the right player for Newcastle United. I hope that targets would still enjoy the pull of Newcastle United, the opportunity to pull the jersey on and play at St James's Park. I hope that would still be an attraction to a lot of footballers, because it has been in the past. But money can change the mind of a player, can certainly change the mind of an agent, and that has been Newcastle's biggest hurdle.
This is a good question, Mr. Lee, but fans also going deep into this and says, all right, the piece are the wages, but this didn't prevent the club before, like when Amanda there, we have less difficulties in signing players.
Well, I think the club were at a different stage of the takeover at that point. They were looking at players to help them stay in the league, so they didn't have a problem persuading Kieran Trippier to come to England and play in the Premier League. It wasn't a problem getting Chris Wood to swap Burnley for Newcastle. There's a few other players.
I mean, the level of players are different now.
Matt Targett going from being on the bench at Aston Villa to playing for Newcastle. We're now at another level. That was 3 years ago, so things have changed since that point. And yeah, who knows? I mean, if they were still here, they may have had more of a pull to go and get some bigger names. But I think they would have been hit with the same problems that the current board have got, which is you can't really offer someone over £150,000 a week. There's other ways of doing it, of course, but I think the problems are deep-rooted because Newcastle aren't ready to go up to that next level because of PSR. So it's a really tricky situation. I wouldn't wish it on anybody in some ways, but by the same token, it's more of a challenge. It's more of a challenge to move forward, and this season is a very big season.
Wages, when do you think the club will adjust it?
Ooh, that is a good question. And what is it going to take? Is it going to take winning the Premier League title? Is it going to take winning the Champions League? Something different has to happen because the revenue will continue to go in a steady direction. But unless you kind of smash one of them big trophies, you get the Premier League or you get the Champions League, that's what brings the riches into the club. And I think that's what Newcastle must, in the next 5 years, have to do before they can get onto those big signings.
Brilliant, Mr. Lee. Reason behind being late on the sponsorship of the stadium, the Benton Park, and training jerseys.
What is the reason for the delay?
Yeah.
Well, I actually did a story on this yesterday, and it's basically Newcastle want good value. They want good value for any deal that they make. They don't want to commit to a long-term deal that's going to cost them. When the new owners came in, they inherited a lot of bad deals that Mike Ashley had put in place. So they were stuck in the Castor deal, for example. There was other sponsorship deals they were tied into, and it was becoming a big problem for Newcastle, and they had to actually buy out of those deals get new ones. So they're not going to go rushing into another deal. With the training ground, I think, yeah, ideally it would be great if somebody could come in with a sponsor and just put another 15 million in the pot. But those deals, you know, if you look around the Premier League, not every Premier League team has a training ground sponsor because they're not as easy to get as people think. So if Newcastle can find a partner that's going to put another 15 million in the pot every year, then they're going to take it. But I think really with that, it could well take a brand new training ground for that to happen and the attraction to be there. And the training ground kit sponsors, I think they have had talks with 2 or 3 companies about possible deals. So I think that's ongoing. So I think we will see progress. And they just obviously got the deal with Guinness. So that's a world brand that they've got on board as well. That's going to be more money going into the pot. So yeah, I think it's always a work in progress.
You're saying, Mr. Lee, that they reject some offers and it's not that good offers for the sponsorship. Is it? I'm assuming it's not from Saudi Arabia. Is it possible to get the sponsor from Saudi Arabia for this for the stadium and the training? Is it possible to get Saudi company sponsorship?
Well, I do think that at one stage Salah's name might have been mentioned with that, but nothing progressed with that. So maybe they're waiting for the next big deal to come. I'm not ruling it completely out of the equation. I just think that ultimately Newcastle, they're looking for the right deal. That's the information I'm getting. They're looking for the right deal. If they can get it, then great. If not, they keep looking.
When you expect Isaac will play, if he stays?
Oh, well, I think the big hope is that the next time he plays, hopefully it's not in a Liverpool shirt against Newcastle a week on Monday. That's what my hope is. If not, if he doesn't end up going to Liverpool and he stays at Newcastle, then probably it might take him until after the first international break to be fit. But that's just me looking at a projected sort of date. There's not even he knows what the answer to that question at the moment.
He definitely he will not play in Liverpool game, regardless in Liverpool or Newcastle. But what do you think of the game? We spent fighting this the fans. Speaking of fans, fighting with the fans of Liverpool over this. How's the atmosphere, in your opinion, will be at St James's when we play against Liverpool? Second game.
Yeah, well, it's a huge fixture anyway. It doesn't need any extra sort of attraction to it, and it's on Monday night. It's in front of the cameras. It's going to be beamed around the world. It's under the floodlights. It doesn't need any extra sort of what we would say. It doesn't need any extra ingredients in this game to make it a big one. So, but it's certainly got it with this, and I think it's going to be an intriguing game. But it's a type of game that when St James's Park is absolutely rocking, it's a game that Newcastle can win still, with or without Isak in the squad. And it's a game I'm looking forward to because it's, the first home game of the season. Hopefully get a result tomorrow as well. But look, if Newcastle can pick up something tomorrow and beat Liverpool, then it's a real bonus to what's been a tough summer. As you said yourself, it's been a tough summer, and hopefully Newcastle fans will provide the right atmosphere, and I've got no doubt that they will.
Of course, we will answer the question in the chat in just a few minutes. راح نجاوب على أسئلتكم اللي في الشات بعد شوي بس نخلص الأسئلة اللي هنا. We hear rumor, Mr. Lee, yesterday that the club been, I'm not going to say threatening, but they ask or they may be going legally against the journalists like Romano and David Ornstein who just continue speaking and pushing regarding Isaac Matter. Is it true in that?
That I honestly haven't seen that one, so I don't have an answer on it for you. But I know what I can speak generally, and say that transfers now have been a source. They've turned into a source of entertainment. People scrolling on the phone. Social media companies must absolutely love football transfers. Going back to when I first started enjoying football, we used to have a thing called CFAX, and a transfer deadline day was in March, and you would press 312 on your remote control and you would see the transfers just dropping on the screen. And it's changed a lot. It changes by the hour. You now have these people who say that they are transfer experts, and I'm sure they've got some good contacts. But yeah, in terms of what you said, that is genuinely the first I've heard of it. I know certain people get certain stories. Broke quite a few stories myself on transfers in the last 20 years. So I know how these things work. You mentioned one or two there. I could probably write a book on the ones that I've broken, and maybe one day I will. But let's see where we go with this Isak situation, and who will be right and who will be wrong.
This is a question from me, Mr. Lee. I'm wondering, without mentioning any names, we noticed some journalists, maybe they have kind of more access to the club official, but in the same time, the news he breaking, not helping the club somehow, but he continue getting this kind of access, extra access. How's that work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, different journalists have got different contacts, and sometimes whether
do the club angry from the journalist? Why you say that? This is not helping us or something?
I genuinely couldn't really speak on behalf of the club. That would have to be something you would go to them for. But all I can say is different journalists have different contacts, and if you get a story that's a positive story, then you're going to report that story. If it's a story that's not so good and it's about a player leaving, which I've had myself in the past, it's a story that you also have to report, unfortunately. When the timing of that, is there ever a good time to report a bad story? So yeah, in terms of access, that would be something that only the club could really respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay, transfers. We have Ramsdale. Why we choose Ramsdale and Jacob Ramsey? It was John McCain, but then Jacob Ramsey. We know that Villa is struggling with PSR, but how it end choosing Ramsey? Especially also not just John McCain, we hear about Watkins rumors as well. But why Jacob Ramsey we end the choice with?
I think that he's definitely a player that Eddie Howe's liked for some time now. If you look at the agency who he's represented by, and he's represented by the same agency as Malik Thiaw, and I think maybe it gets to a certain stage in the window where Newcastle lean into certain agencies, and those two are both represented by the same people. And there's a number of Newcastle players represented by this agency that I'm talking about. So it gets to the stage where Newcastle needs some help, and I think they have leaned into this particular organisation to help them get some players, and it seems to have worked. But also, he's a very good player. Let's not forget that. He's a player that Villa probably don't want to sell. He can play in a number of positions. He can play left wing. He can play left midfield. He can play in a deeper midfield role. He can play in an attacking midfield role. He can even play as a centre forward, which he has done on a handful of occasions. So it's a good signing. That's the way I look at it. And I'm not bothered who his agent is. It's a good signing.
Wisa, when do you think he will join, or we will finish the deal with him? Do you think he will play with Liverpool? Because everybody talking about Wisa and how he's willing to join Newcastle.
I think it's a deal Newcastle want to do. Brentford are holding on for a big price, or a bigger price for him. So he would be a good signing. Will he be here for the Liverpool game? You know, it depends on Brentford. That's like asking me, will Isak be available for the Liverpool game or the game after that? It's very difficult to say because everything has to be right. So I think it's a deal Newcastle. If they could do it tonight, they would do it tonight. No doubt about it. If they could do it tomorrow morning, yeah, they'd do it tomorrow morning. I think we are waiting for Brentford to perhaps come up with the right agreement on that one. And at the minute, that they're not budging. So we have to wait and see how the window plays out.
Why Ramsey can't play tomorrow? Is it because they don't want him to face the old team of his, or some legal issue?
Don't think it's because of that. I mean, ideally, Villa wouldn't want that to happen anyway. But I think it's more the deal has progressed the way it has. They've waited for things. I mean, unless it's been announced in the time that I'm speaking to you, which I don't think it has. I think it's one where Newcastle will just be happy to have him over the line and ready for perhaps the Liverpool game and go from there. But, you know, judging by the pictures I've seen of him walking around St James's Park with a Newcastle United shirt on, it looks like it's pretty much done. But it has happened before. A player posing with a Newcastle shirt on and the deal hasn't gone through. So never say never is the saying, I think, for that one.
Yeah, you broke a story, sir, about denying joining of Kolo Muani, the striker of PSG, when everybody talking that he will join Newcastle, and because of that plane, and it turns out the plane is Sunderland going to somewhere. Before the show, I just read something about Ramos, the Portuguese player from PSG, and that maybe could involve also this Isaac exchanging or something. Any update on this?
Well, it's not the first time he's been linked with Newcastle, so it's quite an easy link to talk about. It's, for me, when he was at Benfica a few years ago, Newcastle were very interested in signing him. He obviously ended up going to PSG, and I think really, again, if Eddie Howe could sign this player, he'd be very interested. But again, it could come with a big fee, and we'll have to sit and wait and see if Newcastle can come up with an agreement. But today, Eddie Howe said to me in his press conference, definitely a couple more players could be signed on top of what's already been done. So I would assume that they will be strikers, and hopefully the window ends in a really spectacular fashion for Newcastle United.
Part of me is just a feeling that the club doesn't, just a feeling that they are not 100% pressure for the main striker. Or do you think I'm wrong?
I think always this window they were going to be looking at signing a replacement for Callum Wilson, who Eddie Howe wanted to keep at one stage, and also a big name striker. Now, whether Isak leaves the club and that facilitates that big name striker or bigger name striker to come in, again, it's something that, you know, so many different things can happen in one day in the transfer window, never mind 2 weeks. So I think ultimately they want two strikers to come in, and, you know, the Isak situation will eventually resolve itself.
Samo Porto, any updates, Samo?
Again, a player that they've probably looked at a number of times. They have scouts going to Portugal a lot, and it's a league. It's the Portuguese league it's obviously not one of the top 5 leagues in Europe. So any player that comes sort of directly from the Portuguese league into the Premier League will, you know, find it a step up. So, you know, that would be an interesting deal if Newcastle could get it done. But it's certainly, we've seen, look, we're talking in the space of one day, we've been linked with about 4 or 5 players. In the window, we've been linked with probably about 322 players. So all of them, you know, will have been looked at and considered at some point. That's the thing that I always say about the window. People say, oh, well, that one, people are just pulling names from the sky. But they're not, because Newcastle scouts are so meticulous. Eddie Howe's database has got so many names in it. There will be some link to it there and then. In terms of players they can afford, in terms of players who fit into the wage structure, that's different. Eddie Howe saying in his press conference today, we're working on a small pool. And I totally believe him on that, because there will be limited options in the window, certainly in the last 2 weeks. So I don't think you can knock Newcastle for trying to sign players in this window, because they've tried with a number of names that got us excited, didn't quite get them. But the players that have signed, they're positive names.
Pardon my English. Your hunch or your expectation. Let's say we say a second striker. The first striker, is it gonna be Isaac? If not, who's the closest name so far?
Well, it depends on acceptance, doesn't it? It depends on the acceptance of terms. So I would say it's a close race, but in terms of the closest name, even the player that they eventually sign will not know that at the moment. So I cannot really give you a full name there on that one.
I believe for me, Isaac will stays, and the club will do hard thing. All right. Many questions regarding the same topic here and here about the academy. Why we didn't have still any support or discover a player can join the first squad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question. I think the academy it's a work in progress, and ideally you would love to have a conveyor belt of players coming through the academy. But that has been a struggle for Newcastle. They've had Lewis Miley, they've had Sean Longstaff, had a few goalkeepers down the years. They've had Andy Carroll, but in terms of a real conveyor belt of talent, it's very difficult. And it's something what the club are working for. They are signing players from other clubs and other countries, younger players coming in from sort of Spain, South Korea, as we've seen. So there's obviously room for improvement, but I think I've been down to the academy and I've seen what a really professional setup it is. The building is good. The pitches are good. The facilities are excellent. And it's a case of hopefully now getting a real good run of players coming through. I mean, obviously in the 90s, we had a lot of good young players who were local players. Steve Watson, Lee Clark, Robbie Elliott, Steve Howie. These players all came through and they just walked into the Premier League set up, and they belonged on that stage because they were very good. So I'd love to see us get back to finding 3, 4, 5 players who you could put in and hopefully save some money, as that question asked before.
My friend Roy Kawyani, he's supervisor at Al Arabic Club in Qatar from Doha. He asked me to pass his greeting to you, Mr. Lee, and he said he's a friend with you. He have mutual friend, Mr. Andy Kerr. Andy Kerr, I think he's in beIN Sport, I believe. He's asking, my question is, do you think Newcastle would take Liverpool to court for illegally poaching Isaac? I'm not sure this has happened in the Premier League before.
Well, I cannot really answer any sort of legal sort of questions like that, unfortunately. What I will say is that Liverpool definitely put in an official offer. What happened before that? What happens after that? Again, it's something Alexander Isak really could really do everybody a favor and do an interview. So my DMs are open to Alexander Isak if he would like to give me the exclusive on that, and that's certainly I would be asking him about Liverpool. So it would be great to get that type of content. But the bigger question on all of that is, will Liverpool come back with another offer before the window shuts?
Have you speak to his agent or trying to speak to his agent?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to go down the right channels. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. So unfortunately, those calls haven't been responded to, and we wait for some kind of official response.
Okay, Roy says he and his agent would never confess. Tomorrow, first game, Villa, expectation from the atmosphere. Of course, you see the club training, and you've been with the club in Korea and Singapore. I think they are professional. They will not, this issue with Isaac, I don't think they will. But the number 9 situation, we try Gordon, and things didn't work much out. Osola still. What do you think the game tomorrow, what will happen?
Well, obviously Anthony Gordon is the hot favourite to start that game. William Asula has had some opportunities and not taken them. Nothing has fell his way in pre-season. So maybe there's some chance, some opportunity that he might get on as well at some point. But Anthony Gordon, he's got the pace. He's played through the middle before, so it's not the worst. It's not the worst option. But yeah, I mean there aren't too many other opportunities there for Eddie Howe. I mean, we asked him if he would play Joe Linton as a centre forward as well, who's won the number 9 shirt before, but he said he will be sticking to him in midfield because of his physicality. So there are other options, but there are other goal scorers on the pitch as well, of course. Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes, Alanga. So it's not like this is not an offensive team. Could be a thrilling game tomorrow, and this time tomorrow night we could all be very happy indeed.
First 3 game, Villa, Liverpool, Leeds. How many points you expect, Mr. Lee?
Ooh, tough question. Liverpool, I genuinely do think we could beat Liverpool at home, because magical things can happen at St James's Park. So there's potentially 3 points. I think we can get a point at Aston Villa. And if I'm being honest, well, there's no reason why we can't go to Leeds and beat a newly promoted team. So maybe I might be one of the only people at the minute who thinks we can get potentially 6 or 7 points from those 3 games. It's never easy to predict games on paper, but I do think that Newcastle have got a great manager and they've got some great players still, regardless of the Isak situation. And last season was one of the best seasons I've witnessed in my life, getting in the Champions League, winning a trophy, getting some huge results, winning at places like Man United, winning in the Cup at Arsenal, huge results at home. This team is very capable of getting results. So don't read too much into pre-season. And there you go. You heard it here first. 6 or 7 points from the first 3 games.
Hopefully, and it's hopefully all, but 7 is not that bad. I can't believe I asked all this question in within 50 minutes on behalf of Saudi fans and the society in WhatsApp and X platform. We would like to thank you, Mr. Lee, for joining us. As I said before, it's an honor and privilege for us to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me on again.
شكرا لكم للمتابعة. كان معنا السيد ريدر كبير، رئيس صحفي الكرونيكل من مدينة نيوكاسل، طبعا الصحيفة الرياضية الأبرز في مدينة نيوكاسل. لا تنسوا الاشتراك في قناة نيوكاسل مع وليد. تصبحون على الخير، ولا تنسون برضو عندنا سهرة اليوم على جاكو في افتتاح الدوري الإنجليزي. شكرا لكم.